The FBI just served grand jury subpoenas on Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. We're talking federal conspiracy charges for allegedly obstructing ICE operations. This is not some parking ticket investigation. This is the DOJ coming after elected officials with the full weight of federal law. And the charges they're facing could change everything we know about sanctuary policies. Now, here's what this means for you. If the officials go down for obstructing federal immigration enforcement, every sanctuary city mayor and governor in America just got put on notice. Your local leaders who've been grandstanding about protecting illegal immigrants, they could be next. So this investigation exposes the coordinated effort to undermine federal law enforcement that's been happening right under our noses. We're seeing Antifa handbooks, organized protests at Target stores, and heated anti-ICE rhetoric from the very officials now facing federal charges. This is not about immigration policy anymore. It's about whether elected officials can openly defy federal law without consequences. The precedent set here will determine if the rule of law still means anything in America. Speaking of protecting what matters most, let me tell you about securing your financial future. You see, if you're over 40 and you're planning to retire someday, the window to protect what you have built may be smaller than you realize. Here's a question most people never ask. Is your portfolio built for what's coming next? See, many investors in their 40s and 50s discover they have little to no exposure to precious metals, and that means their savings are largely tied to market policies and paper assets with very little protection if conditions change. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, protecting what you've already built becomes just as important as growing it. And that's where Noble Gold Investment comes in, helping investors reduce risk by adding physical gold to their portfolios, gold you can touch. Now, right now may be a smart time to talk with Noble Gold Investments. No pressure, no sales gimmicks, just clear answers and a strategy built around your goals. Visit nextnewsgold.com and build your portfolio for the long term. And there's a number on the screen. Write it down and give them a call. Now back to the federal investigation that's shaking up Minnesota politics. See, here's the twist that nobody's talking about. Commander Bovino just publicly eviscerated Walz and Frey for their anti-Border Patrol rhetoric, saying their heated accusations distract from facts. Meanwhile, crazy liberals in Edina are buying salt at Target just to return it as an anti-ICE protest. This isn't random resistance. No, it's not. It's coordinated obstruction from the top down, and now federal investigators are connecting the dots. Take a look at your screen here. FBI serving grand jury subpoenas to Minnesota officials as Oath Keepers call for the Insurrection Act. I received this press release at about 4 o'clock this morning. Yes, I was still up. I was still working. Concerned legal and national security experts to hold press event on federal law enforcement obstruction and attacks on Americans' constitutional rights. I know it's difficult to read, so I'll zoom in for you. A group of legal and national security experts will hold a press event today outside the White House to address escalating obstruction of federal law enforcement and the growing failure of state and local authorities to protect the constitutional rights of American citizens. The event follows the circulation of a situational brief to senior executive officials outlining a coordinated pattern in which federal officers are being obstructed, threatened, assaulted, and politically targeted for carrying out lawful duties. At the same time, American citizens who support federal authority are increasingly being attacked in public spaces and places of worship, while state and local officials refuse or fail to protect their federally secured rights. These are not isolated incidents, organizers said. They represent a systemic breakdown in the uniform execution of federal law and the equal protection of constitutional rights. The press event will focus on escalating attacks on federal officers performing lawful duties, violence and intimidation directed to private citizens, including in churches, the refusal or inability of state and local governments to protect constitutional rights, the institutional and political consequences of continued inaction. Organizers warn that failure to address these conditions risks normalizing selective enforcement of federal law, eroding public trust, and creating a durable precedent of state-level nullification that will destabilize governance going forward. The event will outline legal precedent, historical examples, and available federal authority designed to restore lawful order and protect the rights of the American people. Outside the White House, 10 a.m. this morning. Media outlets encouraged to attend. And we were there. Our cameras were rolling. We captured it all. Probably the only outlet to do so. So we're going to get into that. You're going to see what happened outside the White House. But now we're going to see what's happening with the Minnesota officials. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison on the anti-ICE rioters storming a church during services, calling it a First Amendment activity. Last I checked, we have the right to express and practice our faith, our freedom of religion, right? So what happens when one clashes with the other?
Do with whether they're going to focus or investigate you. So I wish do with whether they're going to focus or investigate you. So I wish in a normal time I would say no. I say this is First Amendment activity. In time like this, it's just really difficult to say because the only one thing is clear. If Trump likes you, you can do no wrong. If he doesn't, he's going to use every weapon he can against you, including our criminal justice system.
Yeah, First Amendment, he says. Ellison's defense of the church disruption becomes crucial context for what federal authorities are about to do. Greg Gutfeld dropping one of the biggest truth nukes on the left ever after they stormed a church. Listen to this.
How you got here, and you won't admit that that is the reason why we're this isn't about immigration. It isn't about ICE. It isn't about Trump. It is about suicidal empathy that is driven by a rescue fantasy. You have all of these young, middle-aged women going out there because they have some kind of emptiness in their lives that are going out there in this kind of rescue delusion, helping people they don't know, strangers who are guilty of crimes. How can you defend that? This is not protesters going to a church. That is a mob. The people that invented the phrase safe spaces are breaking it up, frightening kids, right? These are the people that call us fascists and they're hunting people. These are the people that claim to defend women and yet are defending men who abuse women. These are the people that call us homophobic and yet they want to out ICE guys for using, I don't know, gay sex apps. Let's be honest here. Frey's a pussy. He's scared of these people, or else he would stand up for it. Calling it love, there's no such thing as a mob with love. And imagine showing this tape to Don Lemon 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and saying, is this where you saw yourself, Lemon? Crashing a church service, scaring kids, attacking a pastor? Was this your hope and dream to do this? Radicalization is gradual. Black Lives Matter is now bad guys matter. And now you'll defend anything. You're defending rapists. These are the people you're defending.
On what?
And I'm going to go back. No. You had your chance. You brought this up. Where are the police? You know, when you have Hamas supporters and Jewish students, police make the separation. Antifa, Proud Boys, police make the separation. Pro-life and feminists, police make the separation. Somehow that separation is not even here, even when the leaders are framing this as protesters versus persecutors, because that's part of this fantasy world that you live in, and yet they decide that they don't need cops to separate it. The ICE agents aren't supposed to deal with that. Mm-hmm. That's what the police do. So you got to ask yourself, why aren't the police there? Because it's a deliberate thing to create this spectacle, and then I'll finish. Mm-hmm. This is not an isolated thing. These rescue fantasies exist because the real power of women, which is in the roles of community, whether it's wife, mother, work, teaching, that stuff has been marginalized by our modern leftist culture that has to be replaced by activism. Your life is meaningless unless you're out there screaming in a cop's face. You have all these sad people out there in this liberation role playing, and you're egging it on. You should not be egging this on, Jessica. You know, we had this This is a time for brave women.
Wow. I couldn't have said it better myself. His outrage is capturing the public mood that's building pressure on federal enforcement to act. The DOJ's Harmeet Dillon says charges are coming against the protesters who stormed a Minnesota church, but tears into state and local officials for not doing their job. Here she is with Glenn Beck.
I think it is fair to say that I saw multiple federal, criminal incidents yesterday, and there will be charges. It's only a question of when can we get a judge to sign off on arrest warrants and exactly what the charges will be.
And those judges have to be in Minnesota, don't they?
They have to be federal judges in Minnesota, and I have to go in front of them, so I'm not going to, say what what is on my mind sometimes. Okay. But right, okay. Let's just say that this isn't Texas, and we aren't getting exactly rapid fire support for charges there on the pace we would love. And people need to understand that there could have been arrests yesterday if Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, enforced his own laws, and Mary Moriarty, the District Attorney of Hennepin County, enforced her own laws. Instead, we see Keith Ellison being interviewed by Don Lemon yesterday, expressing his support for the victims of ICE. So we know exactly nothing is going to happen over there. So you have to understand the federal government has to jump through some additional hurdles. It isn't our job to enforce state law, and we're stepping in to do this here when the state refuses to enforce its own laws.
We're stepping in because the state is refusing to enforce its own laws. DOJ's promise of charges shows federal authorities are stepping in where state officials will not. Now this, leftists disrupt the operations of a Target store in Minneapolis to pressure the company to disavow ICE. When businesses don't do what the left wants them, they use mafia tactics to hurt them until they comply. Wait till you see this.
We are at the Target in Edina. We've got to have about 70 people in line here. Everybody bought salt, and they're returning it. Why? Because we are asking that Target step up as a corporation of moral courage in this critical moment in our country. ICE is leveraging Target's silence. They are abducting Target employees. They are staging in Target parking lots. They are going into Target stores and using it as propaganda opportunities. We are asking Target, whose whole brand has been built on serving the communities in which they are, to step up, speak out, use the corporate power that they have, because we know that's the only thing that they listen to.
So they're harassing Target employees, making them restock all that salt. The Target disruption shows this anti-ICE campaign is expanding beyond the church incident. A group of liberal white women, mostly, have taken over Target in St. Paul, demanding Target stop letting ICE and border agents use their bathrooms. We live in frickin' clown world, says Nick. Look at this.
We are one. We won't stop fighting. We won't stop fighting. Till ICE is gone. Till ICE is gone.
Target says that their mission is to support the joy of everyday life for all families.
Then
do it. Then do it.
Do it. Do it now.
Justice over profit.
Justice over profit. People over.
I sit here not only as a mother or a grandmother, but I sit here as a great-granddaughter of an immigrant. And I sit here and I ask Target, you must stand with us. You must stop discriminating. You must stop treating immigrants wrong. You must give them better wages. You must give them an opportunity to have housing. You must give them an opportunity to feed their children. I sit here because this is the right thing to do.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. They're having sit-ins at Target. The bathroom protests might sound absurd, but they're part of a coordinated pressure campaign that's about to backfire big. This is who sanctuary city politicians and anti-agitators are defending. Cottonwood County, Minnesota refused to honor our detainer for this alleged predator. ICE still arrested him. Criminal illegal alien Samuel Eduardo Arevalo Hernandez of Guatemala. Another menace removed from our streets, thanks to the policies of President Trump and ICE executing the law. ICE is fighting back with real cases that expose what sanctuary policies actually protect. And now we have this. DHS announcing they've arrested 3,000 illegal immigrants in Minnesota tonight. 3,000. Walz Sanctuary Playground is getting cleaned out hard.
DHS announced tonight that they have arrested a total of some 3,000 illegal immigrants in Minnesota, including over the weekend several convicted of crimes such as homicide and sexual assault. Meantime, several dozen protesters remain here at the federal building, protesting the actions of federal agents, but they are staying behind the newly erected barriers put here by the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department. It is a simple and effective, so far, measure that raises the obvious question: why didn't local law enforcement do this last week? Brett?
Exactly. Jonathan Hunt live in Minneapolis. Jonathan, thanks.
And I'll answer the question. It's because they want the chaos. They weren't ordered to do anything yet because now the threat is real. The threat to their livelihoods. The massive arrest operation shows federal authorities are done playing games with Minnesota. Mike Davis says Don Lemon can be hit with 2 charges of civil rights violations against white people and Christians. He built the case himself. Watch.
So this is a remarkable clip from yesterday where Harmeet Dillon said, you know, we're going to use enhancements here like the Biden administration did, using this Klan Act that says you're not allowed to conspire to steal the rights of your fellow Americans. Can you talk us through that, Mike? A lot of people were laughing this off. Don Lemon laughed this off on his little podcast with that psychotic SSRI wine mom. You know, who really does, and I heard this, I can't get out of my head. She looks like she's an alien in a ill-fitting skin suit, and like a bad exoskeleton, like not like the Terminator type. But anyway, this is totally aside, and that's totally petty and bitchy.
What I'm saying is, isn't that's Jennifer Welch, right? Isn't that?
Yes, that's correct.
Isn't that a trans woman? You have a trans woman, and then you have. And then you have Don. Yeah, that's.
I don't know anything. I don't want to ever know anything about this lady. I don't know why I have to talk about this lady so much, but she's such an unhinged sociopath that, you know, and I saw this clip and I'm like, of course this is where Don Lemon goes in order to give his sob story. And Don goes there, Mike. Don goes there and goes, I went to the church because they're white people. And what that did was it fell right into the trap that Harmeet Dillon was talking about on my show just an hour earlier. And she said, well, we're going to explore whether there's a racial component here. Like, were they trying to attack white people? And here it goes, Don Lemon, dumb, like just as dumb, as stupid as you could be, walks right on Jennifer Welch's show and says, yes, I went there to attack white people. So can you please unpack that for me? Sorry for the long answer, a long question. Can you unpack that for me, Mike? Like, how would the KKK Act work here? How would you make this a racial hate crime? I mean, could that possibly happen?
So when Don Lemon went on Dylan Mulvaney's grandfather's show with Jennifer Welch there, then they again, Ben, you're not taking my bait on this, which is hilarious, but what's so crazy is Don Lemon is so stupid.
Yes.
He's going on these shows and he's saying out loud his criminal intent when he's doing these things. So he is building a slam dunk case against himself for a FACE Act violation, for a conspiracy against rights. And not only is this criminal conspiracy against rights targeting Christians, he's also targeting white people. So you can actually charge him twice under 18 USC section 241, one for conspiring to violate the civil rights of Christians, and then another charge for conspiring to violate the civil rights for white people. This guy is in deep trouble. And Don Lemon thinks that he's going to go play the race card and the gay card and whatever other card he has to get out of this. It's not going to fly with Pam Bondi or Harmeet Dillon. They're not pushovers. This is not the Trump. This is not Trump 1 Justice Department. These are actually bold and fearless warriors who are running the Justice Department this time.
Well, let's just hope that they actually bring those charges. It sounds like the charges are in the works. Civil rights violations are being discussed as legal hammer starts to fall on officials. This is the press event outside the White House. We have the video. Here you can see Ivan Raiklin and Stuart Rhodes right outside the White House earlier today. And this press event is where the constitutional crisis gets formally declared. The law named outside the White House, Stuart Rhodes and retired Lieutenant Colonel Ivan Raiklin explicitly identified the Insurrection Act as the legal authority they say applies when federal law is obstructed and courts can't function in real time. Listen.
Federal law provides the president with authority to ensure execution of U.S. laws when obstructions render ordinary judicial proceedings impracticable. This authority has been invoked approximately 30 times in American history. We're talking about the Insurrection Act.
30 times it's been invoked. Rhodes and Raiklin are naming the specific legal authority they want invoked. This is the nuclear option. We have the full video. It's on our X account. It's also on our YouTube channel. You can see it in full. It's about 30 to 40 minutes. But we do have some of the clips here. This is the final warning when they close the event. Rhodes and Raiklin delivered a blunt message from outside the White House saying decisive action is required now to prevent what they described as irreversible national decline.
We pray that they listen to this and set aside the naysayers and the talking heads to tell them they can't do this. Because if they don't do this, this country's doomed. They have to do it.
They have to do it. The final warning language suggests they believe time is running out for normal legal processes. Now, there are political consequences. Rhodes and Raiklin warned that continued inaction would accelerate lawfare against President Trump and shape upcoming elections, arguing delay carries major political costs. Listen carefully.
If this doesn't happen, guaranteed the Democrats win this election cycle.
Yeah, I can
and then
tell.
Number two, then the two lawsuits that you're co-defendants with President Trump on is going to really come back and bite him.
If action is not taken. They're arguing the political consequences will only get worse without the immediate action. Here's the direct call.
I think the president needs to refocus, think about what the maximum authority you have at your disposal in order to stop the escalation, because this is what's going to happen. You've been forecasting it for 6 years. I've been forecasting it for a few years as well. Look at what just happened in Virginia. The very first thing, and this was on Saturday, when John Brennan's protege, Abigail Spanberger, took over with her attorney general, first thing that they do is start to strip away First Amendment and are moving to stripping away the Second Amendment. This is an open insurrection through legislative means, even though it violates the federal Constitution and our individual rights. The only way to stop this, it's not through half measures, it's through full measures. And
full measures. like the Insurrection Act. This is the clearest call yet for invoking emergency presidential powers to restore federal authority. Here's the warning. Stewart Rhodes and Rankin warned that failure to act could lead to unrest worse than 2020.
But we think that the summer of 2026 will be, if this is not stopped now, nipped in the bud, the violence will be worse than it was in 2020.
If you want to support these guys, if you want to support Stewart Rhodes, he does have a GoFundMe on his website. You can find him on X as well. They're predicting that the inaction will now lead to violence that makes 2020 look small. No half measures. They said partial responses only increase danger, insisting decisive federal action is the only way to prevent further violence.
Half measures don't work. In fact, I would say that half measures led to the tragic shooting of Miss Good, because you have people who are enraged by propaganda against ICE, who are set loose on ICE, who don't understand use of force policy inside of law enforcement. You know, a angry Karen, TDS suffering Karen, is not aware of the fact that a vehicle could be considered lethal force.
TDS is now a clinical diagnosis. The no half measures argument pushes against any compromise solution to the standoff, and the historical precedent is clear. Citing Eisenhower, JFK, and others, they argue presidents have repeatedly used the authority, including the Insurrection Act, to restore order.
President Eisenhower, in 1957, invoked the Insurrection Act to enforce federal law and protect civil rights of black students, and enforcing school desegregation in Little Rock, Arkansas. The governor of Arkansas had ordered his state guard to block integration of the schools. President Eisenhower called the Guard of Arkansas into national service and then deployed the 101st Airborne to escort the students.
That's just one example. Just one example of many. Historical precedent matters. Other presidents face similar moments of defiance. Rights under attack, they argue and claim Americans supporting federal authority are being attacked on the streets. We've shown you the footage. And the churches, of course, while state and local officials refuse to protect constitutionally secured rights.
These declarations have coincided with physical assaults on President Trump's supporters, including a January 2026 clash where protesters attacked individuals in Trump apparel and patriotic apparel at deportation rallies, and a late 2025 pro-Trump event in Minneapolis where counter-protesters caused injuries amid ICE-related unrest.
He's citing examples. We've shown you the video. But the attack on rights, supporters gives them their constitutional justification for the intervention. The Guard authority challenge, they warn that statements asserting state control over National Guard units signal direct resistance to federal authority, raising constitutional questions about command and enforcement.
While issuing a warning order to the Minnesota National Guard, asserting, quote, "they are our guard," to protect state interests. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey has similarly discouraged cooperation, stating ICE should, quote, "get the fuck out of Minneapolis."
That's a quote. The National Guard Authority questions signals this could become a military standoff. Rhodes and Rankin pointed to Minnesota as a case study in what they describe as state-level defiance of federal law enforcement, arguing it reflects a broader national pattern.
Recent developments in Minnesota exemplify escalation. Governor Tim Walz, shown to be a CCP surrogate practically, has issued statements labeling federal ICE operations as a modern-day Gestapo and urged their departure from the state.
Well, they're not going to be departing, that's for sure. Minnesota does become the test case. If federal authority fails here, it fails everywhere. The law has been named, explicitly identified as the Insurrection Act as the legal authority they say applies when federal law is obstructed, and courts cannot function in real time.
Federal law provides the president with authority to ensure execution of U.S. laws when obstructions render ordinary judicial proceedings impracticable. This authority has been invoked approximately 30 times in American history. We're talking about the Insurrection Act.
The Insurrection Act has been officially invoked here. After the buildup about the Insurrection Act, we're about to see the FBI's actual response. Multiple Minnesota officials served by the FBI with grand jury subpoenas for conspiring to impede ICE. Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, St. Paul Mayor Kaohly Herr, Ramsey County Attorney John Choi, and also Hennepin County has been invoked as well. So, yep, deer in headlights. Multiple individuals. So instead of the Insurrection Act, we get grand jury subpoenas hitting the top Minnesota officials. Here is the news as it broke earlier today.
Get to that, I want to get to the breaking news we have just heard. The FBI has apparently just served subpoenas to several officials here in Minneapolis, including members of the office of Governor Tim Walz. We will bring you more information as we get it on those subpoenas. Meantime, the number of protesters out here at the federal building is diminishing every day, it seems, but the war of words between local officials and the Trump administration.
The war of words continues, but the paper is flying and the subpoenas are too. So they confirm this is real. The federal government is going after Minnesota leadership through the courts. Fox News reports the DOJ served the grand jury subpoenas on the offices of Walz, Frey, and Ellison. The subpoenas are connected to an investigation into the alleged conspiracy to coerce or obstruct ICE operations. This is a big deal, folks. Fox adds the crucial details about the conspiracy charges the officials are facing. And President Trump, though, he had a marathon press conference today. A shocking moment that we were not expecting, but eagerly excited to cover today. Here is President Trump talking about the people in Minnesota who are committing these crimes.
And insurrectionists. Nobody talks about the fact that $19 billion at a minimum is missing in Minnesota, given to a large degree by Somalians. They've taken it. Somalians, can you imagine? And they don't do it. A lot of very low IQ people, they don't do it. Other people work it out, and they get them money, and they go out and buy Mercedes-Benzes, and they come from here, they have no money. They never had money. They never had a life. They never had a government. They never had a country. Because there's basically no country. Somalia is not even a country. They don't have anything that resembles a country. And if it is a country, it's considered just about the worst in the world. They come here and they become rich and they don't have a job. I was told that Ilhan Omar is worth $30 million. She never had a job.
Ilhan Omar. $30 million. Where do you think that money came from? Yeah, we all know. Trump's inflammatory comments show he's fully backing this federal crackdown. Also, President Trump firing at Don Lemon over the Minneapolis church confrontation, too.
So this is what the people are trying to protect, because all ICE wants to do is get them out of our country. Bring them to prisons and jails and mental institutions from where they came. That's all they want to do. They're patriots, and they have to be abused by guys like Don Lemon, who's a loser, lightweight. I saw him the way he walked in that church. It was terrible. I have such respect for that pastor. He was so calm. He was so nice. He was just accosted. What they did in that church was horrible yesterday.
We showed you the footage, and it was nauseating. Trump's response to Don Lemon connects the church incident directly to his broader immigration agenda, exposing the real reason why Minneapolis politicians are so hostile towards ICE. Listen to this very carefully.
We brought Wisconsin down. We brought Minnesota down, way down, even though everything's a fight, because they want to keep those people that are lying on the floor. They want to keep those people in Minnesota, but they really don't. I don't think the real people of Minnesota, it's a very corrupt place, and the elections are totally corrupt. I feel I won it all 3 times. Nobody's won that state since Richard Nixon. It's a rigged state. And the Somalians vote as one group, even if they're not citizens, and they vote as one group. And, you get 600,000 votes against you. They all ought to get the hell out of here. They're bad for our country.
I can agree with that. Trump explains the political calculation behind Minnesota officials' resistance to ICE. Cassandra McDonald posting that same video we showed you earlier of these libs annoying random workers to stick it to the man.
Folks, I want people to see this live video. We are at the Target in Edina. We've got to have about 70 people in line here. Everybody bought salt and they're returning it. Why? Because we are asking.
Because they want to stick it to the man. Even mundane protests like salt returns show how this anti-ICE movement has spiraled into absurdity. And then Commander Bavino fried Tim Walz and Mayor Frey for their heated rhetoric and anti-ICE Border Patrol rhetoric. Listen to this.
For too long, residents have been told that enforcing our nation's immigration laws undermines public safety. In reality, the opposite is true. When the law is not enforced, violent offenders remain free. Criminal networks expand, and the community pays the price. Our neighbors, our citizens, our friends pay the price. Rather than confront that reality of which I've just spoken, leaders like Tim Walz or Mayor Frey have relied on heated rhetoric and accusations that distract from the facts.
And that's the exact point of their rhetoric. They want to distract and divide. So the real investigation, the real bombshell, this investigation includes the St. Paul Mayor Kaohly Herr, Ramsey County Attorney John Choi, Hennepin County officials. We're looking at a coordinated conspiracy across multiple jurisdictions to obstruct federal law enforcement. These feds don't serve grand jury subpoenas unless they have serious evidence of criminal activity. The message is crystal clear. The days of sanctuary city officials openly defying federal immigration law without consequences are over. When federal investigators start serving grand jury subpoenas, careers end and people go to prison. This investigation will determine whether elected officials can coordinate to obstruct ICE operations or if the rule of law still applies to everyone. The precedent set here will ripple across every sanctuary jurisdiction in America. Either we're a nation of laws that apply equally or we're not. Do you think these Minnesota officials should face federal charges for obstructing ICE operations? Let me know in the comments. And while you're there, check out the Next News merch shop for gear that shows you stand with law and order.
The system controls information. Information control is power. They don't want you to see this. The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.